Hello, hello, hello. You are tuned into the Parent Camp Podcast. I am April Draine, and I am joined again by the wonderful Miss Julie Pile and Miss Laura Gilchrist. Today we are talking about relationships, but in building villages. So ladies, I don't want to waste any time. I love just having these conversations with you both. So I want to hear, what are we talking about today? I know we're talking about relationships and building villages. Let's just naturally let the rest of this flow. So what are we thinking? What are we talking about today in that regard?
Well, so being on the parent side, I always want to connect with my kids' teachers and with the kids at school, with the principals, and but there's often not that opportunity because there's events and there's activities and there's not always that time to just chit chat and get to know each other type thing, or to have more
Ooh,
deeper conversations, which is
yeah.
how relationships get built. So, when we're talking about schools having events, so many times in accountability systems or in showing or talking about how successful a family event is, it's numbers. Like how many people came.
Mm, yeah, I
Well,
got you. Yep.
numbers don't always tell the whole story because relationships you can't quantify. They're more qualitative type stories and what ends up coming out of it by people connecting. So, traditionally family engagement events are built for instant impact. That time, everybody has that, you have back to school carnival and everybody's running around having fun, riding rides, doing the games and stuff. But then everything trails off after that. Where if you design the family engagement events for ongoing engagements where people are wanting to come back time and time again, because if we go back to our last episode, the events have been built to design those to meet those universal human needs. You're
Yeah.
hitting a different completely set of the of the parts of our body and what we need, what fills us, what fills our souls and our buckets.
So instant impact versus ongoing
Hmm.
impact is what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
As a teacher, I taught close to 2,000 kids over my years. And I reflected after teaching, how many of the parents of those kids did I really know? Did I actually know
Mm.
anything about beyond talking about grades?
Yeah.
And conferences are a lot about grades. You do get to talk a little bit, but it's a short amount of time and you move on. And I know for me, my mom was a teacher and I loved it when she knew one of my teachers. I would go to her and I'd be like after conferences, what did my teacher say? What do you think? Da 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 da. I was so lit up about that. I loved it when my mom knew my teacher. So I reflected back, like there was no opportunity to get to know our families. And it, teachers want that, but the way our family engagement events, they don't allow us to develop relationships, and we need the time and the space to develop relationships. And it doesn't have to be a long time. But the way you set it up, meeting a lot of universal needs, the relationship is the key, and the kids will benefit when we know each other and
Yeah.
we have trust, and we're like, wait, they're not an other, like, they're actually a real person, and I connect with them.
Yeah.
And wait, I might reach out to that teacher because I know her from sitting in a circle with her. And it just opens up so many doors that weren't even there. And each one of those doors has all sorts of unlimited opportunities.
I know as a parent who has not, I mean, I've done substitute teaching, so I've seen the other side of teaching. I definitely have high
Hmm.
respect for teachers who do what they do on such a regular basis. As a parent, I often wonder though, like, where is that? Is it a fine line you all run into this? Do you think there's a fine line when it comes to developing relationships with the parent and the teacher when it comes to your child? Like, at what point is it, this is a great way for the student and for us as the parent and the teacher and the student to all be engaged? Because sometimes parents may feel that there's a big line of delineation, like, no, you only need to speak to me as the student's teacher regarding just your student, their grades and how they're doing, the end. So when you mentioned talking about relationships or even building a village, how do you see that actually working in a healthy way where you're not crossing boundaries? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. So it's really important for everybody to have respect for each other and their space. Like,
Respect.
yeah,
I like that one.
it has to do with respect. Like, would you text a coworker at 9 o'clock at night? Typically not.
That
So
part.
you don't
Gotcha.
do that
Okay.
to a
Yeah.
teacher. They have
Yeah.
their personal space that they need, just like everybody else does. But I think when you start to get to know each other more on a personal relationship, maybe not like deep kind of relationships, but enough to know about each other, the kids feel it. Like, I know when my kids had teachers who I had a really good relationship with, and one thing I always did with my kids was at the start of the school year, I would schedule a time during the teachers' planning periods, even when they were up in high school, and say, hey, just want to, give you a little bit of background about my kid, what their interest areas are. If they
Yeah.
seem like they might be bored or not engaged, maybe have them work on a project that meets their interest, and you'll pull them back around. The little tidbits and keys to your kids are golden nuggets to the teachers. The other thing I would always tell the teacher up front is, I know my kids are not perfect. So if there's something you need support on or help with, let me know, because I'm here to support you and the kids.
I like that. I like that. You're coming in with hey, I'm not coming in to be against you. I'm coming to be assistance to you, with you as you are helping my child. So I like that perspective. Laura, from the teacher side, have you experienced, like, when you were actively in, was it middle or high school when you were
Mostly middle
mostly
when I taught.
middle? Okay, so what do you, if you have a story, great. If not, or just a point to mention, how is it or how was it for you as a teacher? Did you feel more support from a parent if they were proactive, or how were you as far as to try to reach out to engage parents? To, again, we're talking about relationships and building villages amongst the child, the student, and the parent. What was something you probably did or something you found helpful to make it a healthy, supportive relationship between you, the parent, and the student?
Oh, I love this question. So I was on a team, it was either 3 or 4 teachers, and I would email the team. Like, we got together and we're like, let's send something to the parents every single night,
Oh,
because we can't talk to each other until conferences. We can email and all that, but we can't make phone calls. We don't have anything set up. So let's send a s'more. A s'more is like a newsletter, and you can
okay.
put pictures in it. So I would email the teachers on my team every morning and say, what's your homework? What's your question for the evening? Like, or fun fact of something that happened in the day, for when kids say, I did nothing at school. You
Oh,
give,
yeah.
families the intel. And then we'd add any pictures or videos, and then just kind of give some context. Probably took 20 minutes a day to do. Copy and paste, and then send it out. But let me tell you, the parents said they felt like a fly on the wall. They got a glimpse into school, because they don't really come to school. It's not
Yeah.
in middle school. They don't really come to school. In elementary, they come, but they might help at parties. And high school, you don't see a lot. So sending that really, really helped. Parents loved it. I felt a connection with them, because a lot of them would respond back and say, thank you for that. Or
Yeah.
they'd share back with stories about it. Or, oh, guess what else happened tonight? Or I asked this question. So it was a way to give them something in lieu of being able to have a space to really develop relationships. Because to develop relationships, you have to relationally talk to each other. That's what we know at Parent Camp. You can build them somewhat through email and somewhat through SMORE, but the real way to build the relationship and the trust is it has to be relational. We have to be with each other, talking to each other, seeing each other, hearing each other, listening to each other. So that was a favorite thing, and I'm telling you, we had very few. I mean, it was just smooth sailing, truly, because it helped establish, that we cared and we're depositing every single night. So that was the main thing that we.
So I'm going to tag on to Laura's story. As a parent, I appreciate things like that because that gives us material or fodder to be able to
That part.
ask our
Yeah.
kids. Like they know like we have an idea what's going on. So a similar story when my kids were in fourth grade, when my daughter's in fourth grade, the classroom had a Twitter account. So the teacher was trying to teach them, responsible social media and how you interact on Twitter. Now remember, these are fourth graders. So that one of their jobs for the day, which rotated, was one of the students had to do the social media for the classroom. And they would put their initials as the hashtag. So you knew when your student was the one tweeting for the day. So when it was set up, it was humorous to me because the first tweet that came out of that classroom was from my daughter. And being that I was running a social media company at the time, I'm like, proud mom moment. But it gave me a way to be able to ask questions of her when she came home at night because she knew
Yeah.
I had an interest and I kind of knew what was going on in the classroom. And so I could, instead of asking, what did you do today and get the nothing, I could ask a specific question, like, tell me about this project that you guys worked on or whatever. And that was a great year of a relationship. Even though it was the kids tweeting, the parents appreciated that fly on the wall perspective.
Okay. And see, I'm hearing fourth grade, which is elementary. And Laura, was the s'more, was that something that you all did? The team of or the team of teachers that you mentioned, was that middle school?
Yes.
Okay. So here's a big question that I run into because I have a college graduate graduating next month, but I also have a high schooler and a new coming high schooler this next school year. Something with the bit of parent engagement that I do have with my son's school, the high school, is how do we engage the high schooler parents? Because again, we kind of already alluded to it a little bit. In elementary school, parents typically have the opportunity to do the like the classroom parties or different programs at the school, and they attend those. Middle school, somewhat, but by high school, I hear so many administrators mention it is just the hardest thing to continue to have parent engagement for whatever reason, whether it's, hey, the kid has it figured out by now. We don't know what the rationale is, but what is something that you all think can really allow parents for high schoolers to stay just as engaged as they were from the elementary to the middle school? Because the kids need just as much support, I believe. But
Absolutely.
what do you think is something that can really keep parents engaged even on the high school level?
So I always tell the analogy, when a child is in elementary school, the parent's in front and the child's behind. Middle school, the child and the parent are walking together. High school, the child's in front, the parent's behind. So it's like your role changes. You still need to be there. Even I have a daughter in college. I still have a role as an engaged parent. I'm on a parent advisory council for the honors college because they want schools know the more parents are engaged, the more successful the kids are going to be. Direct correlation.
Yeah.
But it just looks different at each level. One of my favorite parent camps to do is at the high school level because parents are in this kind of flux. They don't know what to do. They don't know how much boundaries to set, how much freedom to give. And it's a real opportune time for parents to talk to each other and they'll realize, okay, we're all going through it. How do you manage social media devices, social media accounts? What about driving and giving independence? The college process, like there's so many first-time
Yeah.
college parents, like it's so overwhelming. By giving an opportunity just for the parents to come together and sometimes share miseries, share success, ones who have been through it, sharing their experiences, to the new ones, the newbies going through it and finding that support system. Parents are going through as much change in those years with their lives and becoming empty nesters or trying to figure out what they're
Yes.
going to do to fill their time just as much
Yes.
as the kids are. Um,
That part. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
so and I think it's an opportune time for the schools to create not as much how much can they be involved at the school or doing things at the school, not making copies and that kind of things, but just providing the environment and the opportunities for parents just to interact and connect with each other. Like being focus on and saying it's okay, just provide an event and a time for just relationship building, for people to talk, to, think of it as,
Mm.
when you're going to a party with friends and stuff, you kind of mingle around and you talk to other people and you feel good when you leave. Not everybody has opportunities to go to parties or whatever. So the schools can help provide that opportunity for the community, for community building. And it's okay for there not to be a specific outcome to an event or an activity.
Mm.
It's okay. Like, just set that time aside for people to build relationships because guess what? That's going to come back tenfold down the road. It's going to come back more times. Your ROI or ROR, as the book I just read on spring break by Ted Ruman and Catherine Rose about return on relationships. You're going to get so much bang for your buck when you just allow that time for people to converse and build relationships, build their support systems, and connect and learn from each other. As holding an event on how to fill out the FAFSA. I mean, that's a one-time, one-and-done thing where when you have parents who have had 3 kids go through college and fill out the FAFSA, they have experienced that and probably can provide a lot more insight than just the step-by-step process type thing. Or going on college visits, like how do you even start? Or helping guide your child to what career pathway, what, should they go in the military? Should they go community college, careers, technical trades? There's so much experience and knowledge in your community and parents, and allowing for that time for everybody to learn from each other.
Mm. Mm. So again, you mentioned, and we said it earlier, that there may not always be an outcome, like a quantifiable outcome. You may get 2 or 3 parents, and it could be considered successful.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes people may say, no one came, only 2 people came. But if those 2 people felt encouraged or felt a connection or they built their own relationship out of it, that can be considered successful. And not all of the events or the environments that's created may not bring everyone together, but it will hopefully bring who it is intended for. And I like how you said just being intentional because it's an ongoing impact,
Yes.
not an instant
Yeah.
impact. Oh, I
Yeah.
love
So
that.
I have a story
Okay.
when you're talking about the quantity. So we did a regional parent camp here where I live, and in one of the rooms, it was a room about getting ready for kindergarten, and it was a parent leading the room. So all of the parent camps are facilitated conversations, so there's no presentations or anything. And so it was a parent. She was a school board member, but she has 4 children, and her 4th one was going into kindergarten. So she had lots of experiences of going through kindergarten. So the only person in that room was a dad, and he was a single dad, and he got her solid attention for that room session time. I think it was 30 minutes. That dad had so much relief coming out because he had so
Oh,
many
wow.
questions answered and his concerns and some anxiety, and had somebody else who he could talk to, like if he had a question, he had her phone number now because they exchange phone numbers, that he could ask her, like, what do I do? When is kindergarten registration? Just, I mean, it's a real life hurdle milestone when especially your first child goes into kindergarten.
I love it. I love that. Laura, I wanted to ask you, you were mentioning earlier about having a team, the team of teachers, how you all would meet. What, did you say every day, or you had 20 minutes set aside where you all would come together to get a newsletter together? Is that what you were mentioning?
So I would email everybody in the morning. They would email me back, and then I would send it after school. I'd plug it into the s'more and send it out. Um,
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, with you and the teachers coming together to make sure that the parents receive those newsletters, what was something that you started to see? Did you see any direct impact from the kids? I mean, I know we're talking about how the parents felt engaged or like a fly on the wall to have received those newsletters, or like with Julie mentioning the father who had that one-on-one with that one teacher. What kind of impacts or relationship, positive, hopefully, impacts were you seeing with the student? Or did you see any direct correlation with the intentionality that you all would make sure that the parents were aware? Were you seeing anything kind of simultaneously with the kids as far as relationship building?
as I think about it, kids will love when pictures from what we were doing, or sometimes quotes from them, or we
Oh,
would share what
yeah.
we were proud of. We'd tell them that they'd be like, "Is that going in the newsletter?" And it was that
Mm,
everybody's going to see, and they're going to see what we're proud of, and they're going to see humor and little videos. So it was also creating a kind of a community
yeah.
around the kids. But the engagement, like in terms of were we able to develop relationships with our parents? No, because the time and space for that wasn't there, and it's not there. Like, it just hasn't been there. So back to your question about high school, like the proactive answer is, well, starting back in kindergarten and before, you would have every year, parents, it would be baked in that you would have opportunities to talk about things that matter with each other and really develop relationships with each other. And it can't be, to Julie's point, what do we talk about at family engagement events right now? Typically, we're chasing our kids if they're young, or and we talk about the weather or grades, or
Yeah.
what we're dealing with, but we're not talking about, like, hey, what's important to you about X or Y. We're not reflecting, and that's what we do in these circles, is we come together and we just start listening. And I think one of the most interesting, fascinating things from what people say right after a parent camp is this. They say, I loved hearing all the perspectives.
That part. Yep.
I
Yep.
loved it. And you
Yeah.
don't hear that. Like, it's all about, we're all against each other, right? Well, you think this, well, I think this. Well, if you have the conditions set up to develop relationships and be seen and meet all those needs and engineer those open feelings, well, guess what? We all actually get along. And I think what Julie and I notice is that we just really want to contribute. Like Marshall Rosenberg says, we want to help each other. We want to share a story that might help another parent. And information is not just what comes from one person and an expert on a website. It's from everybody's lived experience.
And it's also, what's the Field of Dreams movie? If you build it, they'll
Yeah, yeah,
come.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you don't know who will
Mm-mm.
come, but I think Julie mentioned it earlier, and Laura, you're saying it again. If we just provide the opportunities or the environment for the parents to be engaged or to be a part for however long, and it may not be, again, as we continue to say, there's not always an outcome that you're looking for, at least not an immediate
Right.
outcome. It may be over time. It's like you're planting seeds. You're like
Yeah.
you're planting a seed here, you're planting a seed, and in due time, the harvest will come. But if the intentionality is there on the front end, that we really want parents to be involved. We really want you to be a part of this. We are not against you. We want you. I mean, just for someone to say, we want you to be a part. Please show up. Please be a part of this. That can go
That goes out.
so, it can go just a long way. So relationships, and I'm appreciative of this episode, and it's a real simple one, but it's a very impactful one, that there is really power in building relationships and creating a village and creating the environment and just saying, hey, we may not have it all figured out today. We may not all see the results today, but if I see that you are for me and not against me, or as Julie mentioned, hey, these are the things I know about my child, I'm providing you this information so that it can help make your job easier. And as your job is easier, going to what Laura did, hey, we want to make sure you're involved. We'll make sure you see a parent report at the end of the week or each day or a quote. So it's, if you build it, they'll come. I don't want to get in trouble with that quote, but if you build it, they will come. So I like the way you all are just mentioning it. It's not a lot, but it's definitely depth to it, building relationships and building villages. And we have stories forever, I'm sure, each episode, but is there like a quote that you all probably have? I mean, I know you guys are quote people as well. Is there like a good quote that we can probably end today's episode for our
I
listeners?
do have one. So it is from the
Oh,
book
let's hear it.
Return Our Relationships by Ted Rubin and Catherine Rose.
Okay.
And the quote is by Anais Nin, and I love this quote. Each friend represents a world in us, a world possibly not born until they arrive. And it is only by this meeting that a new world is born. So by creating those opportunities for parents and community members and educators to be able to cross paths and cross lives, you don't know what world is going to be born.
Ooh, that's deep. I
That
love it.
is. I need to let that marinate. But yeah, that is good. And Parent Camp, you all have created such a great model. Again, not that you all came up with it, you're just thinking about the basic, I don't want to say basic, the universal human needs, and then creating the space, creating the environment, and being intentional. And I like how you said it, Julie. Say that last part again. Birthing? What did you say?
The end of it
Birthing?
is only by this meeting that a new world is born.
A new world. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, this is good, ladies. Again, not a long one today, but a very impactful one, because relationships matter. People matter. Our listeners, you matter. And again, we hope that you are hearing something that you can glean from, take from, apply it to not just you and your child, but in your community, in your schools. And yeah, we still have so much more to talk about, so many more episodes to come, and so many more conversations and stories to share about not only what Parent Camp is doing, but the model that they have tapped into, returning relationships and building relationships and investing. It's so many more conversations that we look forward to having. Ladies, I've enjoyed speaking with you all today, and I think we'll wrap up. Until next time, thank you for joining the Parent Camp with Miss Julie, Pile, and Laura Gilchrist.